What happens when a patient uses AI to solve a medical mystery that top physicians miss? And what does it mean for how we diagnose, treat, and manage serious illness? Hi, everyone. I'm David Williams, president of strategy consulting firm Health Business Group and host of the HealthBiz Podcast, where I interview top healthcare leaders about their lives and careers. Today, I'm joined by Steve Brown. He's a technologist, entrepreneur, and the founder of CureWise. After surviving a devastating wildfire and developing baffling symptoms, Steve was told his condition was everything from stress to indigestion. But when he built an AI medical agent and fed it the same data the clinicians had, it flagged a rare and lethal cancer they'd missed. That agent helped guide his treatment, and it worked. He's now turning that personal breakthrough into CureWise, a platform designed to give patients access to AI-driven insight and a virtual tumor board of their own. Do you like this show? If so, please subscribe and leave a review. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, David.
All right, so it's a heck of a story. Sounds like a good one so far. You've got a long career as a technologist, and I'm wondering, what was your relationship like with AI and healthcare before becoming a patient?
Well, I have AI healthcare patents that have already expired because had been in this field a long time. In fact, I was in it for such a long time that I left for a while and became a documentary filmmaker for about 10 years because I was sort of tired of the glacial pace of the healthcare business. But my original business actually right out of college, and then my first startups were in chronic care. Looking for the biggest problem in the biggest industry. And we started what became the pioneering remote patient monitoring, chronic disease management technology company. We won the national contract with the VA. We did the work to get that data into to Medicare and to Congress, and got into Medicare and kind of paved the way for a lot of things that now are kind of commonplace. But it was a long haul, and it was a lot of work on other people's problems. But when I kind of got dragged back into healthcare, it was by a diagnosis, and I realized that things are a little different now in healthcare because AI is really changing the game. We were too early for AI before, but now it's just having a tremendous impact on all aspects of care.
Yeah, now is the time. I think there's a jazz number called that, and I think it's about right. Okay, so I heard the story about the wildfire. What does that have to do with anything? And it sounds like you started having symptoms after that.
Well, actually, I had symptoms before that, and I was being kind of tested for everything. Kind of doing the full, get the full scan, get all the tests, get the colonoscopy, get the endoscopy, test everything. And the response was, well, this is a fishing expedition. We can't find anything. I mean, it turns out they were fishing in the wrong pond. There was a lot of stuff going on, but it's, I hear this a lot with cancer, that it's misdiagnosed for a while because, maybe it's just, finding the signal and the noise is hard if you don't know what you're looking for. What I actually got diagnosed, I got displaced from my regular doctors and my regular health system by the fire to a different health system. So a fresh set of eyes. And I ended up getting diagnosed. But my question then when I was in the hospital was, why didn't they catch this sooner?
Yeah.
So what I did is I used my old data and with AI, and AI was immediately kind of right on target, saying, well, you need to do these tests. You need to check your plasma cells. You might need a bone marrow biopsy. So the AI was kind of right on target where the doctors before were calling it a fishing expedition. So for me, that was very enlightening as to how much power is already in the AI. Foundation models we have today have been trained quite extensively on medicine, because I have something that's quite rare, and it sort of knew all the details. So
Yeah. Well, the thing in medicine, of course, rare conditions are quite common in the sense that many people have something that's rare, right? So it's not just like you had a specific thing that maybe somebody hadn't seen before, but a lot of people have things
yeah.
like that are different.
Well, this is what really led me to precision medicine, because precision medicine is kind of the recognition that if a million people have a cancer, it's a million different genetically unique diseases. But pretty much everybody has a rare disease. Everybody has a
Yeah.
unique disease. We kind of put people in buckets and treat them with kind of the same standard of care, which works, 30% of the time, or it doesn't, it's it, depending on what you have. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't work at all, but it's not that personalized. It's kind of treating the average. The whole new field of oncology is looking at the looking at the genomics of the cancer cells, looking at the microenvironment, looking at the molecular profiling, looking at this whole new field of diagnostics, and from that discovering what are the unique vulnerabilities of that cancer, because you might need a unique set of treatments based on that. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was initially put on standard of care. I started digging into the cytogenetics and molecular profiling, things that were kind of attached, and these big long attachments in my
Yeah.
that no one really even talked about. But I insisted on getting tested weekly rather than monthly or every other month, because I really wanted to know what was going on. And I could see pretty early on that the standard of care wasn't going to get me to a complete response. But when I started looking at the specific mutations of my cancer with AI, with the assistance of AI, I realized that there were other options for me. They happen to be off-label and not approved for my disease, because my disease is too rare. No one's going to do a clinical trial.
Yeah.
It's too rare. But when I went to the Mayo Clinic and UCSD and UCSF, I found that, hey, these are the right treatment options, and I should get on this completely different path, which I did, and it was extraordinarily effective. But I never would have been on that different path if I didn't know about it, if I didn't kind of become an expert in my own disease.
Right.
I didn't advocate for it. So what I was developing with the AI was really a way to look at my medical record from many different points of view and synthesize those results and try to give me feedback. So when I go to talk to my doctor, there's a human in the loop here. It's called your doctor. But
Yeah.
what you get from your doctor actually does depend a bit on what you know and what you advocate for and what you ask for.
So let me go back to a little bit back in the conversation where you were talking about how they were fishing in the wrong pond. And I just want to ask about that and maybe challenge it a little bit. So it sounds like you were able to look at what they previously had gathered from whatever tests were being done and to be able to see the insight there. So maybe they were in the right pond, but they just couldn't see the fish, or they had the wrong sonar for it, or something like that. Is that right? Like the information was there?
The information is there, but like with a lot of things in healthcare, there's a lot of, say, ambiguous results. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you're anemic. That could be a bunch of different things. Well,
Yeah.
there were some very clear clues in the data that were missed because they weren't looking. They weren't
Yeah.
looking for something else. This happens a lot in medicine. The explosion of medical knowledge is beyond human scale. It's like nobody
Right.
can contain that in their brain. But AI has the ability to access and synthesize a much broader body of knowledge. So it's really going to be an essential tool in diagnosis. But diagnosis is kind of one and done. Okay, now you got your
Yeah.
diagnosis. Now what? But where it's really interesting is in precision medicine and, say, the personalized treatment options.
Right.
Because this happens, I also see this. I kind of learned all these things along the way just by going through it myself. But there's a lot of things where it's kind of like, hey, you can do this or you can do that. You decide.
Yeah.
Well, how do you got to
Based on what?
educate yourself to even be competent in that conversation.
Right.
It's pretty hard when you're kind of hit with all of this life-changing stuff. So the first kind of order of business is it really helps for you to become educated in your disease, down to the details, down to the these reports that might be 12 pages long and have a bunch of Greek in them and it look totally foreign to you.
Yeah.
there's a lot of clues in there. How can you educate yourself on that? I mean, I didn't go to medical school. I didn't get a PhD in molecular biology, but with the assistance of AI, I can zoom in and I can learn the parts that are relevant to me. I don't need to learn all of medicine. I need to learn the parts that are relevant to me. So if I'm going to have a collaborative, shared decision making with my doctor, you need to be a good counterparty to that. You need to be able to, if you only get 10 minutes with your doctor, how do you make every minute count? So I saw a need for, there's a lot of precision medicine out there. And if you go to Mayo Clinic or Dana-Farber or UCSF or UCSD, you're going to get a lot closer to it. But if you're not going to some place like that, how are you going to get access to it? Well, you need to ask for it. You need
Right.
to dig in, because if you don't dig in and advocate for yourself, you're going to get standard of care, which maybe is exactly the right thing for you to get. It's what worked on average. It's what worked best on average.
Yeah.
But chances are, you're not average. Chances
Yeah.
are
Got
you're
it.
different than average.
All right, so you've got you did the first thing of kind of like the data gathering, and
Mhm.
then the analysis and assessment of that was essential for diagnosis is basically coming with the help of the AI. And then there's the personalized treatment. Once you've got the diagnosis, of course, you want to treat the right thing, but you don't necessarily treat it in the standard way. And understand how there's the interaction between you, the machine, and still going to the right places and dealing with the physician. So then how did you go and so then where does CureWise come out of that? Why does it go beyond just your own personal experience?
Well, I mean, I developed, I was customer number one.
Yeah.
I'm a technologist, and I'd been developing a lot of AI related products. I, I was the chief AI officer for Peter Diamandis, and I developed a whole bunch of kind of educational AI things for his community. And it was all really interesting and really fascinating, kind of pioneering kind of new ways of using a mixture of agents and models and chain of debate and having agents argue with each other to kind of
Yeah.
vet information and sort it out. And I took all of this kind of stuff I'd been working on and pointed it at my medical record.
Hmm.
And I wasn't planning to make a product or make a company. I was just trying to figure out, like, how do I survive this? That's
Yeah.
the question. But as it started to work, and then, I know a lot of people in the medical field, and some of them started inviting me to come speak at their conferences and talk about what I'm doing. And I thought, I thought I sort of, first thing you think when you get cancer is, okay, well, certainly my career is over. Like,
Right.
it's the first thing you think. But people started saying, well, how do I get this, for myself or my family, and how do I invest in this? And so I realized, there are people really
Yeah.
interested in what I'm doing. I started sharing it with friends who had cancer, and other people started also getting insights. I mean, CureWise is not doing any diagnosis or treatment. What it's doing is educating you to have a more enlightened conversation with your doctor, so that you kind of know what's going on and you know what to ask for. And knowing what your options are and kind of advocating for those, you're gonna have more options. I did this for myself. It started off with treatment options, but then there are a lot of other factors beyond that. Like, a lot of cancer is immune compromising. So it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
treated the cancer, but then I got an infection. So then there's a whole nother set of things for, like, how do I keep my immune system, in good shape? So there was a whole nother layer there. Kind of, offense was working, but what about defense? And then lifestyle factors. I mean, if you think all those are important, for prevention, they turn out to be really important if you're in
That's right.
immunotherapy, chemotherapy. So there's a lot to manage and a lot to
Yeah.
monitor. So I built an application for myself that was kind of like, let me manage all aspects of this. When I got to a complete response, when my new AI kind of discovered, at least for me, I mean, it was obviously, it's out there. People were doing this at leading centers, but when I figured it out and I asked for it and I advocated for it and got on a better path, I'd had a complete response. I started feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I've done startups before. I know how much energy that takes, and how challenging that is. And but I started to recruit a really fantastic team. I raised some money, and we're bringing that product I originally built for myself and then some friends, and we're bringing that to market. It's in a private beta right now. You can sign up and get on the waiting list and
Yeah.
write in there about why we should let you in early.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're kind of doing that right now where we can do some hand holding, but by January we're going to release it to the wide open to the public, and hopefully it's going to help a lot of people. And the kind of phase one of this is let's make precision medicine more understandable and accessible to patients. The downstream, but where do we go from there? It's, well, precision medicine is exploding because the diagnostics are exploding and the treatment options are exploding. So what's happening is that everybody's ending up with a rare disease. Everybody's ending
Right.
up with a
Exactly. Yeah. Back to the point about rare diseases being common and being, in fact, maybe, you're back in the marketing terms of, segment of one. So if you can actually apply that makes
N
great
of one.
sense. So you talk about, heard CureWise described as a virtual tumor board, which sounds good, but I think first question is, what is a tumor board, and then why does it need to go virtual?
Well, so I don't know if you remember, it's like some of those medical shows. I mean, maybe it was like House. There's several doctors, go into a room and they look at a case and they all have different opinions and they talk about it. And that process can be very helpful because, again, medical knowledge is too vast to be all contained in one brain.
Right.
So, and then you notice in real life, you've got a lot of different doctors. If you got cancer, you got a bunch of different doctors probably.
Yes.
And if you go to different doctors, even different oncologists and hematologists, you get a lot of different opinions. That doesn't mean that, the fact that you go to 5 different doctors and you get 5 different opinions, it doesn't mean that your doctors are hallucinating. What it means is that things are complicated and, there isn't an absolute right or wrong. People don't know the absolute answer on these things, and there are different opinions. So with AI, it's similar in that you don't want the AI to just try to give you an answer, because chances are it's going to be one of a bunch of possibilities, and who knows
Yeah.
what's the right one. So we've constructed this to intentionally look for a diversity of opinions from a diversity of points of view on your situation, on your question, and then to have those agents kind of talk to each other and see where they agree, see where they disagree, and kind of synthesize the results or kind of cross-validate. If one of them has a different idea and the other ones, like, have the other ones weigh in on the new idea.
Yeah.
And through that process, what you're doing is you're digging deeper into the knowledge, because everybody watching this podcast probably has used ChatGPT by now, and you will know that depending on how you ask the question, you might get a different answer.
Right.
Well, that's not very reassuring in medicine. You kind of want a
No.
deterministic answer, but you're not going to get a deterministic answer. You get different opinions because there's a lot of unknowns. So let's actually dive into that. Let's look for a diversity of ideas, and then let's look for convergence, because
Yeah.
that's important to know. So in my case, when I looked at my old data and said, what's going on here? I had 5 different agents from 5 different points of view in medicine look at that. And I had 5 different opinions about what they thought the diagnosis would be.
Right.
But what they said is, hey, to settle our argument, you need to ask your doctor for this test.
Right.
And that test will decide. And it was exactly the test I needed. And if I had known that a year earlier and I would have gotten that test, they would have diagnosed me a year earlier. But I did not know to ask for that test because I didn't have any clue. How am I supposed to know about any of this stuff? But if I had known enough about it to say, hey, what about that test? Why don't you do that test? It looks like you can't quite figure out what's going on. Why don't we do this test? It would have been, it would have.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, it sounds like a very, kind of modern AI-based approach to this question about differential diagnosis, because the best systems that I've seen up to this point, they help you narrow it. They say, they never give you the one definitive answer, but they say, here's what we know, and with a 70% chance of this, and if we did this test, then we're going to be able to get it to 95 percent chance, something like that. So on this approach, it sounds broadly useful, certainly in cancer and then beyond. And even you could imagine even extending this to the whole social and political context, say if people of different views could learn to come together and speak and converge, that would be great. We'll save that for a different podcast or a different startup. But for right now, for what you're focused on with CureWise, who is best suited for this approach?
So we did decide to focus on cancer first because that is the frontier of precision medicine, and it is more complex. And it has a level of complexity where you can't just type it into Chat GPT. It's you got a much bigger medical record. There's a lot more going on. It needs some special care because it's not just you or your genes, or it's an evolving cancer that has its own genes and its own variations, and it's constantly changing. So it's complex, and it's the frontier of precision medicine. And you're not going to cure cancer without AI. It's too complex. We finally have a tool that allows us to deal with this vast new kind of sets of data that are coming out of precision genomics and molecular profiling. So it needs AI. It needs an AI application. So we're focusing there. Who is the kind of target audience at first? Well, it's people who want to become more of an expert in their disease because they want to figure out what the best options are, and they want to advocate for that. Now, I've been sitting in the infusion center at the hospital for my own treatment, and some people are just clearly just going to do whatever their doctor says.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are there, they're on their iPhone and looking at my chart, and they're talking to a family member. They might be like my parents' age, but they're talking to a family, looking at my chart, and they're trying to figure stuff out. Like that's our audience initially.
Right.
It's for who's ever going to advocate for that patient, which it might be you advocating for yourself, or it might be a family member.
Got it. So it seems, almost axiomatic that a physician using AI is going to be better than a physician on their own or a random person using AI on their own. And yet, at least some of the kind of early, maybe small, provocative studies have shown that doesn't always exactly add up. And so I'm wondering what you're seeing in terms of the state of, let's start with diagnosis, speed and accuracy from some of these top medical centers. Is it being accelerated by AI? Is it improving? Is it worsening?
Well, I think there's a lot of biases in some of these studies because I think there are people that want to show this and want to show that, and you probably put things up to show whatever you want to show. But the reality is the medical knowledge and the rate of medical knowledge generation is beyond the scale of any person to absorb analysis. And that's just a fact. I mean, if you even attempted to read the top papers in your field, you'd spend all day long doing that and not practicing medicine. So what do? We just go to okay, what's the standard of care? It's like, okay, you have this. We don't have time to think about it. And there's a shortage of oncologists, and there's a rise in cancer. So we need assistance to do this. We need knowledge tools to be able to do this. I've seen some of the studies that you're referring to. Some of them were done on, if it's published now, it probably was done on models from a year ago or a year and a half ago. It's very dated. This field is growing exponentially. The knowledge that's compressed into those foundation models is quite extraordinary. You do need to know how to manage it, because you can find a way to set things up where it doesn't work if you want to show it doesn't work, but you also can find ways to set things up that are super, super helpful. And there are companies that have already become significant companies doing this for doctors. I mean, Open Evidence is they're doing this for doctors. And your doctors are going to get AI. Your insurance company is going to get AI. The drug companies are getting AI. I mean, everybody's getting AI. Who's looking out for the patient? So we're focused on that. And I think that people are going to see that we're on their side because we're doing this for ourselves.
Yeah.
Saying, look, I'm doing this for myself. If you want to come along, if you want to come along for the ride and do this too, welcome. But we're doing this for the patient first.
Yeah, got it. So what guardrails are needed for use of AI in medicine? I get the sense that it is going to be used, it is being used, and notwithstanding some of the papers that I'm describing, it is going to get there if it isn't already. But what guardrails do we need?
Well, we're not trying to be Dr. Robot, and we're not trying to get an answer. What we're trying to do is we're trying to explore what's possible, and we're trying to get educated. So if you put this in the context of collaborative care or shared decision making, it's between you and your doctor. It's really helpful if you're a little more of an equal partner in that, rather than the doctor in the white coat just telling you, and you're a deer in the headlights and don't know what to do. The more educated you are in understanding what's going on, the more valuable those conversations are going to be, and the more likely it is you're going to get to a better result. So I think it's, what are your expectations? The biggest guardrail is having the right expectation of the AI. The AI is not there to diagnose and treat a disease. It's there to help educate you about your disease and give you some ideas about what might be possible so that you can have a better conversation with your doctor. If you go in with that expectation, it's going to be awesomely helpful.
Good. So things are moving very quickly, as you described, and not only is medical knowledge has grown a lot, but AI is moving quickly, and the brain doesn't understand exponential growth too well and can't relate to it. So, but where do you see things going over the next few years? I mean, if we have this conversation in 3 to 5 years, what is AI-powered diagnosis and treatment planning going to look like at that point?
It's really getting to truly personalized medicine, and precision medicine. So I mentioned earlier on that, if 1 million people have cancer, it's 1 million different genetically unique diseases.
Yeah.
At that point, every one of those people is going to get their own precision optimized cocktail that's optimized for whatever their unique condition is. How do we get there? Right now, we're looking for fragments of DNA and fragments of genes in the the soup related to your cancer.
Yeah.
And that's fairly incomplete. But we're going to be sequencing the entire genome of those cancer cells, and then we're going to be using AI to predict the evolution. Because if you let's say we discover this weakness in your cancer cell, hey, it's keeping itself alive because of this particular weakness. Let's treat that. Well, chances are it's going to evolve a workaround. But if you understand what that weakness is and how it might try to evolve a workaround, maybe you'll hit the workarounds at the same time in a better cocktail, and you'll knock it out, with a higher probability and faster. So there's a lot that's going to happen because we actually know more about the cancer. Cancer is really unique disease because it's your own cells that have decided, hey, I'm not part of the whole anymore. I'm going to evolve on my own and do my own thing. It becomes a parasite. But it's evolving. It's its own kind of, Darwinian that's going on. So you kind of have to crack the code on life itself to really figure out cancer, which is why it's kind of interesting to dive in, because as we figure that out, we're going to figure out a lot of other things. It's going to have a massive impact on healthcare in general. But this is like becoming the most expensive disease we have.
Yeah.
And it's the frontier of all of this new new field of diagnostics and all the new molecules and things we're discovering, also with AI. So, it's like 3 exponentials converging. The exponentials on the genomics and molecular profiling, the exponentials and all the new ideas for molecules that might work, and the exponential of AI. So these things are converging in a way that I think there's really a shot at getting closer and closer to what we call cures.
Yeah, outstanding. Well, let's wrap it up there. That's it for another episode of the HealthBiz Podcast on the CareTalk channel. I'm your host, David Williams, president of Health Business Group, and I've been here today with Steve Brown. He's founder of CureWise. If you like what you heard, I hope you will subscribe on your favorite service. And Steve, thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, David. Thanks.